Hi everyone, good evening. If you can hear me, please react so I know you're with me. Okay, hi Charles, hi Vivian, hi Manuel, hi Juliet, hi Samuel, hi Claude, hi Francis. I'm going to start my video so you guys get to see me. Hi everybody. I'm very excited to be doing this. I would want to give would I say a brief background on what the Career Tour Guide Initiative is all about, and then we'll ask people, and subsequently we'll take our questions. But I like to plead that we're very attentive and we actually have the mindset of taking practical steps, right? Subsequently. So as much as possible, please pay very good attention. And yeah, we wish ourselves the very best. Okay, so the Career Tour Guide initiative was born out of an interest of wanting to help people, especially with respect to career. And I believe most of us here can agree that with at every phase in your career, there's just always questions unanswered, right? It genuinely feels like a journey to a place where you haven't been before, right? And even when you seem to have the right opportunity or you seem to have the right connections, there are just always questions. There are just always um concerns, right? So the Career Tour Guide initiative was born out of an interest to address such questions, and in the belief that when we work together, things can always be better. I personally believe that people can do very great things. People can do anything they put their mind to. That's my personal belief. I believe once you decide to do a thing, once you have an interest in doing a thing, I believe nothing should stop you from doing that thing. And that's one thing the Career Tour Guide is meant to help you with. It's meant to guide you through your dreams, your visions, and ultimately help you achieve these things. And that's one of the reasons why we have a session like this. This is our first live session. We're connected on YouTube as well as Google Meet. It's our first live session, and we have invited speakers that have experiences we feel are laudable, and then they'll be able to share their experiences. They'll be able to answer our questions. They'll be able to, walk us through the paths that they've walked on, basically. So we're going to be having them share their stories for 15 minutes each, and then we will go to the questions. Yeah. So who's excited and who has their notes and pen with me? Because I remember posting on my YouTube channel, on my LinkedIn, and I said how I intend to get into Harvard and ISC. And I promise you, I'm as ready as you guys are, right? Because I want to also hear from them and make good results from this. Okay, I can see we have Adebayo on the call. Hi, Adebayo. It's great to have you here. And I can see we have Nkim too. Hi, Nkim. Thank you
Hi,
very
good
much.
afternoon. Just give me a second to turn on my camera. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much for accepting to be on this call today. Okay, so quickly, we'll be starting with Adebayo's story. So, Adebayo, would like you to walk us through your journey, basically the highlights, the things you feel like we could leverage from, the things that helped you stand out, and yet what we can gain from it.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peace. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your very busy Saturday to join, to hear myself and Kem talk. And thanks to Kem as well for joining. I guess I don't know how to start. So I went to the University of Lagos university, and when I was there, I started the Investment Society with Gideon, Chijoke, and a few people in class. I think at the time, one of the biggest driving factors was we figured that there was a big gap between the things we learned in class and the things that we expected to learn in school and what the industry actually wanted. And so we were thinking about ways to bridge that gap ultimately so that we could be a lot more. Okay, is my audio low? I can switch audios if that is the case.
Yes, please. Can you help us with
So
your audio?
yes, yeah, I would switch my audio. Uh,
Okay.
Is this much better?
Very much.
Can people hear me now?
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
great. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. I was using my system's audio, which is the reason. But I was saying earlier that like in university, I started an investment society with a few of my classmates. At the time, the biggest factor was we had observed that there was a big disconnect between what we learned in school and the kind of experiences we got in school versus what is more obtainable outside and from like a much more practical perspective. And so for us, we're thinking about how best to bridge that gap and how best to like skill ourselves or reskill ourselves in order to be able to be competitive globally. That was honestly like a driving force. The other thing is we also had so much time on our hands as well. So, we figured what else can we do outside of playing sports and playing games and doing other things? We might as well just lock in and do something good for ourselves. And so the entire plan was to create a community of people who were pursuing the same career goals and figuring out ways to help ourselves achieve our career goals. But like that was my journey. And so when I was in university, I was very lucky. I interned at Goldman Sachs in London. I did investment banking there. I also interned at Bank of America in New York. I did M&A and I got full-time return offers to join the bank in I think Dubai and even in London. I ultimately, decided to go to London to do FIG. So FIG is financial institutions, so it's the financial institutions group. What I'd observed before going was a lot of Africans and many young people who get opportunities like this would often decide to join like the natural resources group because oil and gas is obviously very big on the continent. But I also knew that like payments and fintech was a big thing, and like at the time it wasn't necessarily the biggest thing, or like it was one of the biggest things. But for me, it was also something I was just generally passionate about. I thought Fig was very technical. I thought it was a place where I would learn a lot more, and I would also be able to work with companies or clients on the continent. And so I wanted to gain that exposure. And so I did figure I did that for a few years. I was an investment banking analyst, and then I got promoted to associate. And upon promotion, I heard about an opportunity from Lightrock, which is like a $2 billion um, growth equity fund. I can talk about that in a bit more detail as well. And so I joined them for a fellowship program, which is the LGT Fellowship. I was based out of London doing investing across Africa and across Nigeria. And I left Lightrock to come to business school. So at the moment, I'm currently at Harvard Business School where I'm doing my MBA and my MS in management science and quantitative methods. I'm also cross-registered at MIT, so taking classes there as well. And I'm also happy to talk about this in more detail and the decisions that led me to this point. I had a quick request though, if you guys would indulge me, if I have 1 more minute. I want to share a QR code. If you can please, like whilst I have all of you on the call, if you can please just check out the QR code. for like 30 seconds and like just check it out. It's part of a school project I'm doing. So please, I would appreciate your support on this one. But like I figured I could do it now before everyone starts to drop off. If that's fine, please let
Oh
me
yeah,
know.
oh yeah,
Otherwise, I can.
yeah. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. You can share it too.
Let me know if you can see it, and I would just and I'm just gonna leave this here, but please feel free to move on or just proceed with. Thank you.
Okay, at the back, we can see now. So yeah, please, if you're on the call, please let's just scan the QR code and go through it, please. Oh, great. I think someone dropped the link in the chat box. So I think that's easier to access.
Yes, thank you. And also, if you can please put your emails because I get graded on Leads. So please, but feel free if otherwise. Thank you. But also, please feel free to move on ahead. I can always just stop sharing this. So I can just leave this in the background. In any case.
Okay. If you joined the waitlist, please kindly react so our guest knows that we're with him. Thank you. Thank you. I've also joined the waitlist, and I'm sure he'll want to talk to us about it sometime during the call. But yeah, we can have Inkem now, and then she can walk us through her journey.
Thank you so much, Peace. Yeah, my name is Nkem Okoye. I mean, a bit of my career journey. Let me just start from the start. I studied at the University of Lagos. I finished in 2018, did my convocation in 2019, studied economics. I'll say, unlike the other speaker, for me, I didn't start off thinking I was going to be in finance, to be honest. I didn't think I was going to start off in finance. So right when I was in uni, I just thought I was going to do something in communications or HR. I mean, that's like a contrast from what I was studying, but the internships I did in school were really around, communications related stuff. So I worked like intern at the media center, that's in like media center. I also pursued other opportunities like hosting like some mini events in school and off campus. So I was pretty much thinking that was the path for me. I'll say for me, the whole thing started when I left university and then I started my NYC. So I joined KPMG Nigeria. I was there for just about a year for a typical NYC Nigeria. That was my first time working in a professional services firm. And I think what it just did was really to just give me an eye opener, like really understand myself. I mean, I knew that wasn't for me, like doing it for 1 year. I'm like, okay, Ken, this is not the path for you, but it really opened my understanding to now see what I really was interested in. And that was when I decided to like give finance a chance. And I think I started finance in 2020. I think I joined Afro Invest in 2020. I did investment banking for a year. I pretty much worked during the pandemic, so I called myself a pandemic baby because at that time I didn't have to go to the office physically, maybe up until 2021. So I was there for about a year, learned the ropes of finance, learned how to do financial models, valuation, all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, Kim, this seems like you. I didn't think I was going to go that path, but doing investment banking helped me really see more about myself. And I think that's what I would say is unique about my journey, is that I was really open to trying new things. So, I mean, if there's anyone on the call, like, let's say you're going in a different path, just know that if you want to try something different, like, there are just so many opportunities. So just have an open mind, try things, and then you learn and you figure out what works for you. So I'll say that was my story. I did investment banking. From there, I moved to PwC. I wanted, a bigger platform. I wanted a firm that was more global. PwC is a global professional services firm. So I was at the Nigerian office for about 3 years. I worked there, and currently I am at the IFC. It's the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. So I'm currently at the headquarters at Washington, D.C. What I just do right now is investment. I work in specifically in the manufacturing sector. I know he said he works in fix, so I work in manufacturing, pretty much construction materials, chemical and fertilizers, automobile, all of those kind of stuff. So I work solely on the manufacturing sector in emerging markets and developing economies. So I don't just focus. What I love about my job now is that I really work across different emerging markets, from Latin America to South Asia, to Africa as well. So I really wanted that global exposure, and I think I've been here for about a year, 6 months now, and it's really been a very rewarding experience. So that's where I am right now. I know I have other things to say as we progress, in terms of my specific career experiences and my learnings, but that's really just a bit about me. I don't think I'm the conventional finance girly. I wasn't in TIS and all of this stuff, but right now, I consider myself a finance professional because I've really dedicated years to really getting to where I am right now. So yeah, that'll be my intro. I'm going to talk more later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nkem. I think one thing I liked about your story is that you said you were open to opportunities, and I think that's something everybody on the call should also note. For every opportunity, for every door that comes your way, right? It's best to use it, leverage it as much as you can. Yeah, I think it eventually leads to something good, right? Yeah, so we're going to be going straight into the questions that we've been able to collate from people on the call, and just to get more details about how you both got to where you currently are. Yeah. So I think my first question will go to Adibayo. So what habits or routines would you say you built early? Because I mean, you interned in Goldman, you interned in Bofa. That was before school, right? Right. So like, what decision would you say you made early on that helped you? I think currently now they'll tell you, oh, leveraging relationships, getting a CFA, attending conferences, but like, what thing do you think stood out for you?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So firstly, just full disclosure, I didn't know that the CFA. I didn't know about the CFA. I knew early on it wasn't for me, so I just didn't bother. I saw all my friends, reading. I didn't do it. If you're doing it, I think it's great, and I'm happy to talk a bit more about like how to think about that CFA, like what to get out of it. But I did not personally do it. But when I was in school, I think the biggest thing that I learned to do very early on was I learned to take agency. I think agency is the biggest thing you can do for yourself, especially in a world where you have so many options. You can watch videos on YouTube. You can learn how to be a financial modeler. You can learn every single thing. You can literally learn anything you want to learn for free online, or even in person, even if you reach out to people. But you need to have agency. You need to be able to push yourself above or like beyond your limits. You just need to have agency. So for me, that was one of the things I had to build for myself very early on when I was in school. There was a time, I think, in my second and third year where I deleted WhatsApp from my phone. I was president of TIS, but I deleted WhatsApp. I was like, I don't want to be on WhatsApp. I'm not going to be on my class group chat. I'm not going to be on any group chat because I just did not want anybody to reach me. I wanted to be able to reach people who I wanted to reach when I wanted to reach them. Because otherwise, you spend all your time just replying messages and saying so many things, and everyone is calling you, sending you things front, right, and center. So for like 2 years, I was not on WhatsApp. And when they post results on WhatsApp, someone will have to call me and be like, yeah, I've seen your result, or this and that. And I was fine with that because I'm like, that is something I'm going to do. But yeah, for me, that was one of the things I had to do very early on. So use my agency to like set boundaries for myself and to be able to lock in. So in school, I would spend time just locking in Well, I know locking in is a big word now, but even that time we had the same word locking in as well. Just locking in. I was just locking in my room. I was in Marire one time, and I was in Nenjoko another time. I would just stay there and I would lock in and figure out a way to do things. Agency, not urgency. Agency is I encourage you guys to read articles about agency. I can send things through Daniel and Peace as well to everyone. But I think agency is the number one thing you need to do for yourself. How do you keep going when things do not look good? How do you push yourself to do the things you don't want to do? How do you put yourself in situations where you can find luck and you can find success? So that was one of the biggest things that I would say helped me. And even till now, it's something that also really helps me. I would say the other thing that helped me as well when I was in school, or even as I think about my career, even till now, is being able to chest failure. When failure comes your way, you just chest it and you just like stand and being able to bounce back from failure. I know that now things are very competitive out there and people have to deal with failure and rejection every day. But I think in our time as well, there was a lot of failure and rejection. And I think there was a time where I applied to like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 internships or things, and I just got rejected from every single one of them. Even for Goldman, the first time I applied, I got to the final round of the interviews, did every single thing, got rejected. I did Bank of America many times and got rejected as well. But like I had to learn how to turn like that failure into learning opportunities for myself. And I basically went into every application thinking, how do I give my best to this? And even if I fail, like how do I navigate that? Right. So I did not emotionally invest in my applications, but I intellectually invested in them because I was like, if I put emotions into it and then if I don't get the email or the results I'm expecting, I would feel very bad about that. But if I invested intellectually into it, I am able to remove myself from whatever the outcome is. And so that was another thing that I learned very early on to be able to do. So agency and just being able to navigate failure a lot better. And I think finally as well, and I think that's one of the good things everyone on this call is doing, just surrounding yourself with people who are thinking the same way you're thinking, like having a community of people who are in the trenches with you. I think it's really important when you're also having open relationships with them. And so it was helpful for me to see that I was not the only one who was getting rejected because other people were getting rejected, for example. And I was also able to see people who did not get rejected, see what they had done, and then I could tailor my application or tailor my approach to what they did. And so I would also talk about mentoring or like mentorship or the importance of that at some point, because for me, that was another thing that was important. So I had people who I would often reach out to in times where I felt like I have put in so much agency. I had invested I've invested intellectually into a process and it did not work out. And so I would often reach out to them and be like, I have done every single thing I have to do, but it still did not work out. And then they would tell me things like, it is great that you've done every single thing you have to do, but it's also important for you to know that you can do every single thing right, but it might just not be the best time. Like there's certain things that are not within your control. And so you need to be able to be fine with that. And so it was by having these people, this community who I could talk to, that I was able to come to that realization. So I would say, yeah, three things. It's just agency. Like agency trumps hard work, honestly. If you can wake up every day and tell yourself, I'm going to run around Unilag, or I'm going to run 5 kilometers, or I'm going to do XYZ, I'm going to send 10 emails. That is agency. If you're going to do that, like honestly, it's just a great starting point. And then being able to navigate failure a lot better. And finally, intentionally seeking communities of people who are in the trenches with you, who understand the things you're going through. For me, that was like those are the things that really helped.
Yeah, thank you very much. Adiba. I think he deserves, yes, I think he deserves some reaction to, I think he deserves some reaction. Agency is more like ownership, and I think that's very important in our world today. I mean, he said he was off WhatsApp for 2 years, and I started thinking about weighing some of my options. I think I might just be that. at some point. And he also talked about how, navigating failures, surrounding yourself with like-minded people. I think those are like really, really great points that we want to pick up. But quickly, we'll move to the next question. I hope everyone is taking notes. I'm taking active notes, I promise you. So, hi, Nkem. I think my question for you would be surrounding your transition, right? You seem to have had some background in media communications, and somehow you ended up in finance post school, right? So I think my question would be, you mentioned financial modeling,
Mhm.
right? But then beyond financial modeling, what are the most important but underrated skills that young professionals who want to thrive in finance build?
Okay, thanks for that question. Yeah, I mean, finance, when you hear finance, most people think of all the financial modeling, valuation, but I think beyond that, one thing that's underrated is really, your presentation skills as well. You need to be very creative. Like, I think one thing that helped me excel in finance, even though, like I said, I mean, I studied economics, I already have some sort of background. I did finance in my 200 level, I did accounting. I love numbers, right? So if you want to do finance, you have to, if you don't love numbers, you have to be ready to love numbers, first of all. You have to be ready to like deal with numbers, interpret financial statements. You don't have to be like an accountant to do that, but there has to be that inclination for numbers. So that's important. But I think beyond that, you have to be creative as well, because like if I compare it, I did audit as well. I say one thing that I noticed that is different with finance is that finance requires you to think, just beyond the surface. You're really helping a client. Maybe you're helping a client that wants to break into a new sector. You're helping them, look at their numbers, see if this business is feasible. It requires a lot of deep thinking. So I think your analytical skills are very important, even beyond like just building Excel sheets, spreadsheets. You have to be very analytical. You also have to be really good at presentation. Like it's a skill, like when I mean presentation, I mean PowerPoint skills. Working on decks, like I mean, I'm sure Adebayo would understand, but like it's a very core part of the job. So you need to be able to prepare slides. That's something you can start learning even as a young graduate. You can begin to take courses. I think they have like some programs in Nigeria where you have like every grade, some other foundations to organize sort of finance trainings. I didn't do them there. Like when I finished school, like I said, I was on a different path, but immediately I said I was going to go into finance. I started taking courses, right? Just to like sort of prep myself on, being creative, being able to articulate my ideas, not just with words, but also creatively on the slide, because a slide can tell a whole lot. So I'll say presentation skills very important. Another thing I would say is super important is also your communication skills. Like even beyond, you can be really good. I've seen situations where someone can be really good at the job, you can be really good at preparing the slides, working through the models, but if you're not someone that communicates effectively, you might struggle with being recognized in your team, being selected to lead projects. So you want to be someone that you work on. It's something that doesn't start off easy. Of course, when you enter a new role, you're going to be a bit confused, maybe a bit shy, but I think what helped me in my own journey specifically, I started taking up leadership opportunities really early. So I didn't wait to become a senior to start leading jobs. I didn't wait until things were brought for me. Like you said, you have to take leadership, you have to take ownership of your own journey. So even if you're an introvert, even if you're someone that in school you were really shy, you wouldn't speak in front of the class, you have to be able to sit in front of people, speak to them, and they're listening to you. Like your partner, your manager, like wherever you work, they have to feel confident that if I give you something to do, you not only deliver it, but you can also be able to communicate effectively to clients. So I think that's what helps you stand out. And there are many people, like, I mean, everybody, if you work hard, you learn how to build models. We're all smart. I mean, being in TIS, studying University of Lagos, studying whatever university in Nigeria, it's already a lot of work. So it's easy to build the technical skills, but beyond that, I would say the soft skills are really important. That's what makes people remember you. That's what makes people, call you out and say, okay, this person, I'll go for this person than the other person. They can have similar technical skills, but what will set you apart is your personality, how you communicate, and the impression you leave with both clients and your supervisors or colleagues. So I say that's really important. Communication, your presentation skills, and just be very analytical as well. Finance is a very broad industry, so you need to be able to apply yourself, actively for you to make the most out of it. So that would be my response to that question.
Okay. Please let's react to Nkem's response. I think the highlights of the things she said, if you're going into finance, you're going to have to love numbers. So if you've not loved numbers before now, that's your cue to start counting your numbers, right? And I know she dwelt on presentation skills, being analytical, right? Because beyond the numbers, you want to be able to ensure you communicate your results to your client, to your partners, whoever you're working with. And I think another thing that's it's important to note that she said was leveraging these organizations like EduBridge, right, that have trainings, opportunities for people post grad, because then I believe they help you bridge the gap that Adebayo talked about earlier on. Another institution that could help with this is the Investment Society, because then beyond what they are being taught in class, you're having to work practically, you are having to experience the industry. And even another partner of ours for today, the Impact College, they also train people on finance, right? And so these opportunities basically is what distinguishes you. These are the opportunities that make you different, because we understand that we're in a very competitive environment. We're just going to move on to the next question. So next question will be for Adibayo. I know you talked about how mentorship helped you in your journey, right? And I know that's one thing that most of us are very confused about. I mean, it's one thing to see someone and want to request for mentorship, right? But then there's, I think, how do I say this? So there's one part to it, right, where you're seeing someone do certain things, and then you come closer to the person, and you realize that maybe you don't want this person to mentor you. So I think the first part of the question will be, how do you select the people you want to mentor you, right? And I think the next part would then be, what are the advantages of having a mentor? Like, if I don't have a mentor, does it make it any less better or worse for me? Yeah. So I think
Yeah,
that would be the question.
no, sure. I'm happy to answer that. Firstly, when I say mentorship, I also want to really clarify here that I don't think mentorship necessarily has to involve some very senior person like you. I think mentorship is actively seeking out people who've been in situations that you currently are in or who you think you can learn significantly from. And I'll give you an example of mentorship that I had, and mentorship that I'm pretty sure a lot of people who at least maybe been to university or been to school have had. In class, there's always maybe one person who is like a scholar who has all the best grades, and during exam, the person is going to do tutorials, or the person will do like help people understand very difficult concepts. I mean, the person is a scholar, but the person is also like a mentor. You can always go to the person and say, hey, I can't solve this question. How do I solve this question? That person has a very specific use case. If you are free on a Friday night and you're looking for a club to go to, you will not go to the person and ask the person, hey, what club should we go to tonight? You go and meet someone else in your class who is the party animal, the person who never sits in one place. That's the person you'd ask, hey, like, I have 10,000 naira. I'm trying to flex with my friends. Where can we go to? And so I know we classify them as relationships, but what you see is like each of these people that you meet for all of this, for all of these things, they have built reputations around the things they do. The scholar is known as someone who is very academically gifted and very hardworking. The person has always passed questions. The person has solved all the questions. The person is always in the library. If you have a problem that comes to school, that's the person you talk to. And you also have friends who they are just like a plug. They know everybody. If you get arrested by the police, they are the ones that you call. They are just a plug. They know everything. And so for them, when you have an issue where the path is a bit, uncertain, they're the ones you go meet. And so that's how I have sought out mentorship. I've sought out mentorship for areas in my life where there were people who knew better than me. So when we started TIS, there was someone in a class ahead. He had interned at Goldman before, and then he also went to Bank of America. His name is Lovely, and we are also at HBS together, right? And so at the time, I would always meet Lovely and be like, oh, I can't solve this question. How do I do it? I can't answer this interview question. How do I do it? And he was my mentor in that regard, even though he was just like a class or two ahead of me. But I would often meet him with all my applications, specific things, and he would guide me on how to do that. And then I also had classmates. I don't know if you guys know Excel, but he's a very popular like graduate who does real estate now. It was also like in TIS as well. It was, I think the most academically gifted person in my class. And whenever I had issues with class, he's the one I would go meet and talk to. And so that's how I have started on mentorship. I don't think at any point in time I have had like some really, really big mentor, some really big figure who I said, be my mentor. And the reason for this is they're very busy people. A lot of these people are very, very busy, and they have to juggle their very busy life with family, with their personal relationships. And they also have like young cousins and nephews and nieces that they want to be present for. And so if you meet them and you ask them to mentor you, it's just really hard. And you don't want to bring up a conversation like that with them. But then if you get the opportunity to work with them in the workplace, say you work with them, you do an internship at their firm, now that's a different situation. Now that you work, within their firm, you are able to run into them organically at work, right? You can run into them at the cafeteria, you can run into them on the way to the office. Maybe you guys live in the same area as well. They might be able to drop you back home. And so as you build those personal relationships with them, they can now start to mentor you. They can call your name out in meetings in the office or like at work, for example, for opportunities, or they can basically support you. So when I was applying to business school, for example, one of my mentors at work wrote my recommendation letter for me. But the only reason why he became my mentor at work was because we just became friends in the office. I would run into him at like the cafeteria and then we would talk and I would tell him what I was struggling with. And I would tell him, he would also tell me what he was struggling with as well. And we would just have regular conversations around family, around life, and around plans. And so when it was time for me to apply to school, I just told him again, hey, I'm thinking of applying to school, by the way. What do you think? And it's like, yeah, I think it's a great thing you want to apply to school. I think you should do it and let me know how I can help you or how I can support you through that process. And then I was like, yeah, actually, one way you can support me would be to write a recommendation letter for me. And what do I need to do in order to, like convince you, or like what do I need to do better so you can put in the recommendation letter? So like those were the things, and like that's how I built out that particular mentorship relationship. So I would say look around you. There are people who know things better or do things better than you do, and then you can learn from. I don't think you necessarily need to go like very big when it comes to building mentorship relationships. And that said, there are also things that you do a lot better than other people, right? And so also find ways to support people who are struggling in that. And so, I'd mentioned how Lovely knew a lot more about finance than I did, and he was able to support me through the process. But I also knew a lot about finance than other people in my class. And so when they come to me to ask questions, I would basically set out time and say, hey, this is how you do it. Let me know if you have any questions. And so the same way I could reach out to Lovely at any time to ask him questions, there were people who could also reach out to me at any time to ask questions as well. And so as I was learning how to manage my mentorship or manage upwards with my mentorship with Lovely, I was also effectively managing downwards my mentorship with other people. Because sometimes one of the things I also hear from people is they say, oh, how do I ensure like a two-way relationship between my mentor and I? And I think that is good for you to be able to offer value to the person who is mentoring you. But sometimes the value you're able to offer is not necessarily directed towards them. You could offer that value on a downstream, like in a much downstream format. So to other people who might be looking to learn. And so that way you are able to manage upwards and also manage downwards as well. So it was a long-winded answer, but I hope it really helped to clarify how I think about mentorship.
Yes, absolutely, Adiba. I think one thing that is particularly important for me is the fact that you said that it doesn't have to be someone who is high up. Because I mean, I bet that like 50% of us on this call have that mentality. Because I mean, those are the people that you see, those are people you see as leaders, those are people that you see as topping or leading cadres. But then in the end, like you said, they have people, they have nieces and nephews, they have colleagues, and they're just really going about their own journey. So you reaching out and expecting them to mentor you might be a hassle. But then looking within and closely to your environment, you'll find people that can just do some certain things better than you, and vice versa. And then you can just leverage that ecosystem. And I think one thing I also want to point out from what you said was um, how, as at the time your colleague at work asked how you could help, you made your ask clear. Like you were very vocal that, oh, I think how you could help me was to, write a recommendation letter for me. I think that's very good. I think that's something that we should leverage on in life, basically, right? Making your ask clear, making your request straightforward. It would really help you get the best out of it. So I think my next question will be to Nkem, and it would be how you were able to firstly break into the big four and then the IFC, because we all know it's competitive, right? And we're here for unfiltered conversations. So we want to really know, how did you get into the big four? And then from the big four, how were you able to get into IFC?
All
Yeah.
right, thank you. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so I'll start off. I mean, the first getting to the big four the first time was for my NYC. That was it was a coincidence. I was posted there. So I don't think I was intentional about, oh yeah, I want to be, like I said, that was not my plan. So I was just posted there. I did my NYSC there. I'm like, oh, that was how I broke in. So breaking in was actually during my NYSC, though not in the field that I wanted. But I mean, I had to experience that to learn, to know that, okay, Kim, this is not for you. That's why I said, like, sometimes you don't really know yourself until you do things. When you're in school, you think, oh, yeah, I want to do this. But when you come out, you have to be very open-minded. Even when you say finance is really broad. There are different types of finance. There's private equity, there's banking, there's portfolio management. You wouldn't know you might read all you want, but until you actually work in those fields, you wouldn't know which is the best for you. So I'll say for me, after I broke into the big four, like I said, that was not my input, but I would say my main breakthrough was, when I joined PwC, and I was very strategic about it. It didn't just happen by chance. Like I wasn't like, oh yeah, waiting for it to happen. Because then at that time, for you to join, I was really specific. Like I said, working at KPMG for my NYC and doing audit, one thing it did for me was to open my eyes and tell me, okay, this income, you've done audits, this is not really what you want. It's cool, but it's not for me. I mean, I learned some things there. I wouldn't say that experience was not valuable. It was really good because it gave me that confidence, working in a very big environment, like a corporate environment, working with people. I really built my confidence, and that helped me with my interview school for banking, even though I had zero finance internship in school. So I would say that was a good experience, but what I did then, now discovering myself better, joining AfroInvest was also very strategic for me because I told myself I didn't want to stay back at, KPMG because they were offering me a full-time in audit, and I said, no, I don't want to start something I don't want to do. I think it's very important when you finish school, don't just follow the bandwagon. It's very easy to be like, oh yeah, people are doing this. So you're going to have friends, you're going to have your NYC people that you need, they're doing something. It was a very difficult decision for me, I can't lie, because I had already built a lot of friendships in KPMG. All of my friends stayed back except me. It was really weird to my parents. Why are you leaving KPMG for AfroInvest? Because I mean, AfroInvest is not like a global firm. It's like, I'll say it's more boutique, right? But for me, I knew that was the best way for me to break into PwC's advisory team. Because at that time, for you to join PwC's advisory team, you needed at least 1 year of experience. And I told myself I want that 1 year to be in something that's related to what I want to do. I was still thinking maybe consulting, maybe it was advisory, but I just knew that it was advisory. That was some clarity I had. Right. So I told myself, I mean, KPMG was good, but I don't want to waste my time doing 1 year on something that just working just for the fun of it. And then maybe I find it difficult to leave. So I took that whole step. My parents were like, okay, what are you doing? My friends were like, are you sure you don't want to stay back? But I said, I had to understand that this is my own journey. So I'll say, for all of you guys are all in TIS together, but just understand that everybody's not going to end up in the same place. Your bestie in TIS might end up doing something different from you, and it doesn't mean all of you will not excel. You guys might excel in your own path. So let your deciding factor not ever be my friends or like somebody I'm looking up to or the president of TIF has followed this path. I must do this. If you genuinely don't connect with it, don't do it. So I think that's one thing that I would say that was a very big factor, because I think if I had stayed back at KPMG to work in audit, I don't think I would be here today. My career path would have been completely different. So I'll say one thing at first for me was just really realizing that I had to follow my own journey. I had to be true to myself. I think be true to yourself and just know what works for you. So I went to work at AfroInvest. I knew that I didn't want to work there long term, like I said, because I wanted, I think working with global firms that will help you the most. Like, I mean, Adebayo, I'm sure he can attest to that. So you want, even if you're working in Nigeria, as much as possible, I mean, I know job market's hard, whatever, but like try your best to aim for the best. I would say just always apply for the best. Like always apply for the ones, because when you go abroad, when you like, I'm in the US now, you don't want to just sound like, oh, you've only been limited to your country. You want to work with the firm that, you know, has a presence. They understand, they relate with you better when they feel like, okay, this firm, because some of the firms we have in Nigeria, they might not even know their names, right? When you say you work in Bank of America, everybody's like, yay, you work in PwC, like, you know, that's, you can easily transition like outside. So if you're looking to leave the country at some point, I know most people say Java syndrome, I think it's so common to everyone, but like, you want to be very strategic about the kind of places you work. So I told myself, work in AfroInvest, you know, then apply to PwC. That was the plan. So then I applied to PwC. This time I was very specific. I applied to the advisory team because now it was not NYC. This is the time for me to really choose what I wanted. So I applied there, and then I joined the deals advisory team. You know, did banking, so logically they placed me in the deals advisory team, and that was how I entered PwC. I mean, it was a very great experience. Finance is very intense. I mean, like big fours are not like very simple. So I would say if you want to do finance, it's not just because it sounds good. You need to really like it. If you want to, you really need to have some interest or some passion for it, you know, in a way, in the real sense, for you to do it long term, because there'll be long hours, there'll be it's very fast paced, especially in PwC or any other big four in Nigeria or wherever in the world. Like there's so many clients, you know, we work with people. I work with in projects, even there's a project I did that I had to go to Singapore. So I didn't only do Nigerian projects, I did projects in other African countries. I was, you know, working on due diligence project for companies in West Africa, you know, other countries. Just it really exposes you. So you're not just limited to Nigeria alone. So you need to have that business acumen. You need to be able to think outside of your, you know, your country. You need to be able to understand other markets, understand what's happening in the global economy. So that, I think that's really what helped me in PwC. Why did I join IFC? Like, I mean, to be honest, I would say my journey has been more of, I always take my life one step at a time. I would say one advice I'll give everyone here is don't think you figure everything out in the beginning, to be honest. Like if you ask me when I joined PwC, if I was going to join IFC, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to join IFC. I think you learn more about yourself, and it's very important that you just really work and learn, because as you work, you then see, oh, I like this. Oh, I want to do this. Like I heard Bayo said about, you know, how he left one to the other. Like when you work, you start figuring out what you want to do. You know, what else, what's more. So I knew that after working at PwC for 2 years, I think my second year, I was like, okay, Ken, you know, I started learning more about, I work with a couple of DFIs by DFIs, I mean development finance institutions. So I worked on projects with Afrexim Bank. I mean, you can read more about them. You know, I work with Afrexim Bank, like in projects at PwC. I work with AFC type of project, that's the Africa Finance Corporation. So working with them, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I really want to do like more of development finance. Like I started working closely with them on multiple projects. I think the biggest one I did was, you know, the hospital that's open now, it's in Abuja. It's the African Medical Center of Excellence, which was, you know, it was really championed by the Africa Export-Import Bank, that's Afrexim Bank. So I did that deal for almost 2 years, and I just started looking at the TFI way of things, and I told myself, this looks very impactful. I wanted more of impact investing. I wanted to just do beyond or just building the models for the clients. I wanted to now start, you know, immersing myself in providing value to some of these emerging markets, right? And I knew that the best way was to join a development finance institution. So that thought maybe came in 2023. It was not something I had at the beginning. Like I said, when you start working on projects, you learn more about yourself. You start seeing maybe specific areas of finance you want to try. And that was how, you know, I mean, it's very competitive. I think the IFC process was the most competitive application I've done. I would say compared to Adebayo, I didn't really do so many applications. Like I didn't have that episode where I applied to like 20 jobs or anything. I would say for me, I would work and then I'm like, okay, I want to move. And I think I was just lucky, not just lucky, I was prepared. Of course, I would say there has to be that grace factor, but you also have to be prepared for it. So when 2023, I think December, I told myself, okay, Kim, I think it's time to move. And then I decided to apply to the IFC. IFC has so many offices, I'm in the headquarters, but we have like Africa. I think I applied to the Africa office, but my target was to go to the headquarters. I really wanted to go to DC because I wanted to like experience, a more global culture. Like I wanted something more diverse. So I applied to DC as well. And thankfully, the Africa one didn't scale through for me. I think they never got back, but then the DC one scaled through. So it was a very intense process, but what made me prepared? Modeling is very important. I'll say you need to be good at modeling, Also, my PwC experience, that's why I always encourage, if you work with a firm that is global, you're able to do so much in a short time, because there's so many deals. So because I was working at PwC, I had done so many manufacturing projects, I'd done healthcare. So when I knew when they saw my CV, they were like, okay, this girl, she has the experience. Like, it's not just by talk, it's not just by giving them boo-boo. Like they can see that, okay, she's actually worked on XX projects. And that kind of experience can only come if you work in a firm that really challenges you, a firm where there's so much jobs coming in that. You will be stressed. I can't lie. The first 2 years I was really stressed because there's a lot of projects, but just know that at the beginning, it's not always going to be easy, but invest that time, don't just do your job and try to be really good at it. Don't try to compete. So another thing I did, I'm not trying to compete with other people, like people on your level, like just do your job and do it well. Everybody can excel. I just believe that there's enough room for everyone to thrive. So don't get to the workplace and start being like, oh, I have to be the best in the team. It comes now. You don't even have to do too much. If you're natural, you don't need to do eye service. Just really do your job well, communicate well, be empathetic, like be kind, just be genuinely a nice and likable person. I think that really helps you. So I think that was what helped me in PwC to really stand myself out in the team. I was the only girl on my level at that time. And I knew I did really well. I got really good feedback. And I applied to the IFC. Thankfully, I got to my first trial, but honestly, usually it's very competitive. I will tell you, many people don't get to the first trial. So don't, like Adebayo said, you need to be open to not getting things. Like you might not get it, you can. Maybe it was my time, I guess. I don't know, but just be open to, you can try the first time. Even if you don't get it, don't give up. Keep trying, because it's a global firm. You're not just competing with Nigerians, you're competing with people from all over the world. In the end, I think I was the only person that was taking my team. The other person that joined the team was already in the IFC from the Japan office. So it's always very competitive, and compared to Nigeria, where they recruit a lot, maybe the big fours, they are maybe looking for 2 persons or 1 person sometimes. So you're competing with so many people. So I'll say what really helped me was just really being prepared. You can't really tell who your interviewers would be. All you can do is do your best, work, know your onions very well, understand your CV, and as much as possible, don't just work for the fun of it. I would say really be intentional. I feel most of people here are in their final year or maybe first year out of school waiting for NYSC. I would say as you come out of school, it's okay. You can be, I wouldn't lie. I didn't know I was going to do finance. So it's okay if you've not, maybe you don't know yet what you want to do. Maybe use your NYSC opportunity to try one part of finance and be like, okay, is this what I really want? Your first job might most likely not be your best job. That's the truth. It might not be your best. It might not even be what you end up doing, but just try something that will help you know in reality, because all of the stuff you're doing right now, maybe you might be reading stuff, doing some talks and talking about the market. That's not the real, when you get to the real work experience, that's when you're going to know if it's what you're going to do long term. So just take a big leap. Don't look at your friends. If your friend wants to do investment banking, if you genuinely feel investment banking is not for you, just go for another part that you feel is that you like. You understand? Just follow what you want. I think for me, that's what has helped me go this far. I always follow my own journey. I'm not looking at what's this person doing. Is everybody going here? People applying here. If you're not ready, apply when you're ready. You don't need to only apply because my friends are applying. Because everybody here, I'm sure most people want to go into finance. So there'll be so much confusion, but just know yourself. I'll say know yourself, and yeah, that's what's going to help you get this far. So if you want to join the IFC, it's a process. You wouldn't just finish school and jump into the IFC. You have to build some experience, especially if you want to come to the global offices like in DC or in another country like in Europe. You want to have built some sort of experience before you go. So I'll say be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself and just take your journey one step at a time, and you get there eventually. If that's the path for you, you definitely get there. So yeah, thank you. I'll
Oh,
pause
thank
for
you
now.
very
Yeah.
much. Thank you very much, Kim. I think that was very detailed, right? That was very, very detailed. One thing I took out from your story is that you were very bold, right? You were very bold. I mean, you clearly said you left KPMG, but then you were strategic, right? So it wasn't exactly about you just wanting to do certain things, right? You had a plan, you had a goal, you made sure to be true to yourself. And I know that's like one thing we would always say in the career tour guide, like be true to yourself. If it doesn't work for you, I guess it's fine, right? If it works for other people but it doesn't work for you, it's fine. Do what works for you, right? And then at every point ensure that you're doing a good job. So I know you said you don't have to do eye service, but do your job, right? And then be good at what you do. Know what you're doing, right? So beyond you feeling your task tracker, right? Know what you're doing. But I think the next question would be a spin-off from Inkim's question, but then it'll be directed at Adebayo. And so the question is, do I necessarily have to do a hard thing to succeed? And what I mean by that is, for Nkem, she left KPMG intentionally for a boutique firm because she was going towards something. You hear people say, "Oh, I quit my six-figure job." "Oh, I left Nigeria to a place without any plan." "Oh, they just did some really very bold things." "Oh, I did this. I stopped this to start my what's now to build my startup," right? So do I necessarily have to go out of the norm, walk out of the norm to thrive or to succeed, basically? Yeah.
Yeah. My some like in summary, my answer would be yes, you have to. It's This is my view, and I think we have different views. I think that um like people, like we all have different. We've encountered luck in different ways over the course of our lives. For me, when I came to Unilag, I knew that I couldn't go back home. I needed to get a job before I leave Unilag because there was just no food at home. So I had to put I had to figure out a way to make things work. I needed to have a plan from when I go into school for what's gonna happen after. And so I suppose depending on the circumstances in which you've grown or the circumstances in which you've done things, you might have a different appetite for risk, right? And so I know people in like who just never bothered getting an internship or doing anything because their parents worked at like big firms and then they could get a job there, right? Or their parents had networks that they could ultimately leverage. I didn't really grow up in Lagos. I grew up in Ogun State. I went to school in Abeokuta. I came to Lagos for A levels and then I went to school as well, like Unilag. And so for me, it was how do I plan myself and plan my life here so that I can find success when I leave this place? Because I'm not going back to Abeokuta after school. I don't know if any of you have been to Abeokuta, but I'm not going back there. Like, what am I going to do in Abeokuta? Right. And so my point is, I had to figure out my plans very early, and it meant that I had to do hard things. And so in addition to like TIS, for example, I was also like in the book club. I was playing ball. I was in the athletics team. I was trying to do Nuga. I was doing everything, guys. I was literally doing everything. And I was like, one of these things has to work out. And so I would say that, like, in my experience at least, you have to be committed to doing very difficult things, right? People talk a lot about gold and how you get gold after, like, gold goes through like a lot of fire and a lot of, yeah, like a lot of refinement before it gets out being very polished. And so for me, that was the process, or like that was my mentality going in. But then I also think that like growing up in Nigeria is already hard. And so a lot of people who say do hard things, maybe lived in the US or in the UK where their life is soft normally, right? And so they don't do any hard things. And so they actively push themselves to do hard things. And I think that living in Nigeria is already really hard. So you have to be very strategic about things. One of the things I would say though is as we think about hard things, so like to Ikem's story, like I mean, one of the things I got from my experience was even though she didn't really have like she had plans after she left school, but she thought she was going to do communications, but she was open-minded enough to do finance. But one of the biggest things you would see from her story is she had a lot of agency. The agency to know that after she had spent time at KPMG, she didn't want to do that again. She was going to do something within advisory. And then she wanted to join like global firms as well. And I think that's a very important thing to have. And so even if you don't know what you want to do, you need to have agency. You need to be able to lean into the things that like life ultimately gives to you. One of the other one of the other things I also learned when I was in school, or like even over the course of my life that I would want to share is you don't want to be in the middle. Like you don't want to be the person in the middle. So you know when you do like a class ranking, like a bell curve of the class, you have the people who are really bad, you have the people who are really good. You don't want to be in the middle, like the people that no one like, just the random people. And I think that is where many people end up. You end up taking anything life gives to you. You end up taking anything that comes your way because you're just in the middle and you're not memorable. And so at work, you are not the best performer. You're also not the worst performer. So you're in the middle. And so when opportunities come to join big firms, for example, you don't have enough deal experience, but you also don't have like less deal experience. You're just somewhere with everyone. So you want to, and doing hard things allows you to swing yourself on these extremes. Because when you do hard things and you fail at those hard things, you probably end up to the left hand side of that bell curve. You're probably like the worst. But if you succeed, you're on the far right tail of the curve as well. So like people know you for XYZ thing. And so I guess my thing is just going to be do really hard things, but obviously calibrate your risk like appropriately. Like shoot for the stars, even if you feel you land amongst, or shoot for the moon, even if you feel you land amongst the stars, right? And like that is the thing that I've always taken with me through life. Remember when I got like all this prize giving day in secondary school where they give you this paper. The paper that I usually get every year was shoot for the moon, even if you're you land amongst the stars. And at the time I was like, this school is so nonsense. People only give me paper and 5,000. But like now, that quote has literally stuck with me since then. So everything I like in everything I do, I'm like, I'm gonna shoot for the moon, or I'm gonna shoot for the moon, even if I can like land amongst the stars. So in thinking about where to work as well, it was what are the very best firms in my space where I can like I would learn the most, right? What are the best schools in the world that I can do this program in where I think I'm gonna learn the most and meet the most people? In taking up projects as well, I was asking myself, what are the most difficult, the most complex, and the most complicated project that nobody wants to do that I can do and I can find success in? And and to the point that, like Inkem was making, there's you put a lot of hours into it, you put a lot of work into it, you put a lot of effort into it, but you ultimately are able to get like if it works out, like you get very good returns. There is without going very technical into finance here, but I guess the word they say is like the higher the risk, the higher the expected return, right? Of taking that risk. And so when you do really hard things, you are ultimately expecting high returns from that risk. So this QR code leads like goes to a landing page that I designed myself. I didn't really learn, like I had to learn software development myself. I had to learn how to build programs and how to write code myself. I was doing finance, I was doing banking, right, doing LBOs and building financial models, but I also had to learn how to do this as well, in addition to doing other things as well. And so, like, this is just my way of really putting myself out there and doing very difficult things. And so, I would just want to encourage us that, like, I think agency is very important and just putting yourself in situations where you can increase that right tail outcome for yourself by taking like really, really high risk. Not high risk, but like by taking like really well calibrated risk, and which is demonstrated by the kind of difficult things that you do. And so again, and I was just really supportive, but just double click on the points that came made around. It is fine not to know what you want to do right now, but you need to have sufficient agency in whatever it is you ultimately end up doing. You have to do it really, really well because you don't know when you will go to next and where that experience will come in handy. So you have to be very thoughtful about the decisions that you make. And it's really hard, but like, oh, please, I really want to beg and I want to implore you to, take time to think about that. So for example, if NYSC sends you to go to like an agricultural farm, hypothetically, but you know that you don't want to do anything in agriculture, right? Would I go there? I probably am going to go there. And I would spend like 6 months there being the best person this agriculture farm has ever seen, doing all the work, spending time understanding about agriculture, you know, going to the poultry, feeding the ends, understanding how everything is. And if I really want to do investment banking or consulting or finance after this agricultural experience, you best believe that when I'm applying to PwC or KPMG, I'm letting them know that I basically worked at this agriculture farm. And these are all the things I learned. And these are all the things that I did. And if you want a recommendation from me, or if you want to verify that all of these things that I have done are great, this is the person you can reach out in this agriculture farm. But you have to believe that, like, at least for me, like, if I was in that farm, I would know every single thing about agriculture. Both the things that were part of my work or the ones that were not part, I would know every single thing because I would talk to everybody. I would try to understand how to run the business. When I lived there in 6 months or in like in a year, I would be the best person on agriculture or poultry farming in that space. And that is the kind of agency that like you always want to have. Because again, you had set out to go to investment banking, but you get to work at an agricultural farm. That is the card that life has played for you, even though you've done all the work that you needed to do to get the other opportunity. But you have to now be very thoughtful about how to transform this unfavorable opportunity into a potential positive. And that is a hard thing that you have to do. Because again, now you can do that and then join PwC and like even if at PwC you're doing, let's say, healthcare, your manager knows that for you to have learned agriculture in less than a year, they are much more comfortable giving you an healthcare thing because they believe that you'll be able to learn that. But even if nobody believes that you'll be able to learn that, you yourself, you know that you'll be able to learn that because you've done the hard things of learning something you didn't know before. And now you're like, I can learn anything. Nothing is beyond learning for me. And that is the thing. And as I round up, I would also say one another part of agency is learning, right? Being able to learn hard things. And I define learning as making consequential decisions that you are accountable for. So being able to learn and take decisions that you are ultimately accountable for. Like that is something that you also want to do as you think about like these hard things, because hard things allow you make decisions. You have to learn how to think about decisions, how to rationalize decisions, and these are things that basically guided me, and just in the spirit of being a very safe space where we can share things on future, I thought like I would share that. But yeah, like don't shy away from hard things. You raise your hands up for projects, raise your hand up for like things that might not look good, but you know that you'll be able to learn from. Like just raise your hand and lean into that and lean into those things.
Thank you very much, Adiba. Thank you very, very much. I mean, you're of the opinion that we should do hard things. And I think you've also warned us against being in the middle, which I think is very, very valid. Because like you said, you're neither here nor there when you're in the middle. So it's often best that you are at the better part of your game, right? And you said learning is like making consequential decisions that you're accountable for, basically taking agency. So if there's one thing I know both speakers have leverage on is like taking ownership, knowing what you want and going for it while being the best at what you're currently doing. And so I hope like everyone, we are also like thinking about what we really want to do. Because for me, I have like some personal questions for myself written out. Like I think one of which is what do I really want to do? Right. And if what I want to do would have me taking some drastic decisions, like maybe going off IG, going off TikTok, these are the reasons why we have conversations like this, so that we can actually take these hard decisions. And one day you're invited to also speak on how you got to where you are, basically. So my next question will be from Ikem, and I think it will be off one of the things she said earlier. So she said at her role sometime in PwC, she was the only female on her level. So I want to ask this question with respect to being a woman actively pursuing a career. right? Might not necessarily be streamlined to finance, but then you're a woman actively pursuing a career. Would you say that you've had to make a lot of sacrifices in other areas of your life? And then being a woman, has it been a leverage or you feel like you've had to fight harder than others?
Okay, interesting question. Thank you. I'll say, well, not necessarily. I don't think I've had to sacrifice a lot. But I've definitely sacrificed a couple of things. I think starting a career is already it's already a lot of work. So yeah, definitely. At the start of my career, I think I sacrificed a lot of hanging out. Like I wasn't hanging out as often like that sometimes because I started doing CFA, so there was some time of reading, preparing for one thing or the other, working on projects. So working in a fast-paced environment, definitely, if you, like you said, if you want to go far in life, you have to be ready to do hard things. So doing hard things comes with sacrifice, whether small or big. Most times it can't be small. It has to be a lot more. I would say the sacrifices I made were really like maybe pursuing other things, like maybe some of my hobbies. I don't think early in my career I pursued a couple of hobbies I had, like compared to him, he talked about in school, he was doing so many things like pursuing games. I also love sports as well. Like I love running, I love fitness, but those were things that because of the schedule I had then, it was so hard for me to do that. I mean, I had friendships. Okay, I think someone has his hands raised. Raphael, um, you
Hi,
can go ahead.
Raphael. If you can hear me, please we'll take questions later on so that you don't interrupt the speakers, please.
Okay, so let me go ahead. I would say there were sacrifices. I'll say for me, the sacrifices were just really around, maybe pursue some of my hobbies and interests that I had early on because I was really getting a hang of my job, managing multiple things. For women, I mean, it's not easy, I would say, because if you're working in a very fast-paced environment, you have to be really tough. You can see that your male colleagues can be able to do some things. Maybe they can stay so late till like 2 a.m. They don't have periods, they don't have cramps. Like you have different feelings at different times of the month. So yeah, I think just be kind to yourself. And like I said, one thing that helped me, I'm not trying to compete. I just focus on doing my job well. And even though I knew like it was just a thing for me, even when I was in AfroInvest, I was also the only female analyst that joined at that time. So I had two other male colleagues and we're all working together. I joined PwC, it was the same thing. I was the only lady on my level. But did I do well? I did really well. And I think what helped me, I'm not comparing myself, I'm doing what I think will help you do what you do and do it really well. I'm a fan of, you don't have to do 20 projects. It's better for you to do 10 and do it really well and leave a lasting impression on both your supervisors and your clients than for you to try to, maybe because you see other people doing, the other guys you're working with, they're doing much. I mean, guys naturally you have more strength to do certain things that you might not be able to do. So if you're not trying to compete, oh, this guy has done 5, let me do 5 too, let me do 10, and then you're not doing it well, it doesn't make sense. So I think what helped me, I had my guys working with me, like in my G's, we work together. I'm not trying to say, what is this person doing? He's doing 10, I'm doing, I will do 7 or I'll do 5, but Nkem will do it very well. Best believe that Nkem will do it super well. That's how I do my thing. So I think what will help you, even if you're in a male-dominated space, like you come to a team, you feel like you're the only girl, I don't think it makes you less. I didn't think I had to fight so much. I just was true to myself, which I think has been a consistent thing. I'm not trying to compare myself. I'm not trying to be like, you're not a man. There's some things a guy will do more than, Adebayo can maybe stay till like 5 a.m. and he'll be good. You might stay till 5 a.m. and you might feel some type of way. You just have to manage yourself, but at the same time, don't try because you see a guy doing X thing. They can do some things just biologically, they can do some things more. So I'm kind to myself. I have days when I'm down, maybe I'm on my period. I understand that I will not be at my peak performance, but I just leverage the time that I'm strong to do it well. So I'd say don't have that in your mind. I mean, the world is so broad now. They talk about maybe workplace women being, I don't really think if you do your work well, you would excel. So I didn't come to the team feeling like, oh my God, I'm the only female. Doesn't mean I have to work twice as hard as the other person. Nah, I don't think I did that. I was just doing my work and doing it well. And your good work will speak for you. When you do good work, I don't think you have to do, for me, that's been I don't have to prove myself. Like when I do things, people are able to even speak for me. And that's where you want to aim to be. You want to be at a place where you're genuinely someone that, even at your back, people are like, oh, she's really good or he's really good. They're not It's not a case of I'm trying to say, oh yes, I'm good. I'm trying to do too much. You don't need to do too much. Just do it and do it well. So I'll say as a woman, just understand that you're a woman. I mean, you have, as you grow older in your career, at some point you definitely have to get married if you want to get married. You might have children. All those things will come up. So it's not just the same. It's not the same field for a man and woman. But I'll just say, even as I get older, I know that I'm still going to like have my own family. I tell myself I just have to be patient with myself. But at the same time, I'm not going to learn any stereotypes. I don't think I face any stereotypes because of my gender. And I mean, I know there's some organizations that do that. I mean, we're not yet at that point where we're completely. Some firms still hold on to that. Oh, it has to be a man that has to do this. But back of your mind, the world is much more advanced now. So I would say women are doing really great things, in Nigeria, outside of Nigeria. So just do your work well. Don't compare. I would say that comparison thing is something I think that can be a big killer. If you're comparing yourself to your male partner, like they're doing X, I want to do the same. That's not how life works. Like he said, major thing, whatever you're doing, do it really well. And down to my own, the sacrifice I made. I think now, I mean, at first, like I said, the first few years of my career, like I don't think I really pursued some other things. But right now, I think I'm doing that. And I'll just say, life is a journey. You have to sacrifice at some point. There'll be a period where you cannot do certain things that you want to do, maybe because you have commitment, you have to prove yourself. But then as time goes on, you can create time as you get more advanced in your career. Like now, I think I'm really pursuing some other things I love. Like I'm pursuing fitness very actively because I love working out. So I do that more now. I'm hanging out with people a lot more. I'm building more relationships. I'm learning new things. So just take your journey. You can't like have a life where you're doing everything at the same time. So there are some things that will suffer at some point, but I think most importantly, I don't advise you being a workaholic. Like, don't be at a point where it's like, oh, because I want to do my job well, I'm going to do work or nothing. Like, still find time, even when you are in the initial phase of your career where it's like you're doing a lot of the dirty work, still find ways to be happy, have a strong family, even your family, your friends, your support system, your partner, if you're married, like just someone that support. I think having a supportive community really helps you. It just keeps you sane, because I can't lie, work is not always fun. So you need to have something else that keeps you going. If it's hanging out with friends sometimes, if it's going for a sport, maybe you like tennis, just find one or two things, because finance can be really busy. So you might not have a chance to do so many hobbies or so many interests. But even with the time you have, just have one or two things that make you happy, and I think you'll be fine. I think I used to do like salsa. That when I was in Nigeria, I love listening to Latin American songs. I love Spanish songs. So you can see me go to like salsa, listen to songs. Like I just love things like that. Those are things I used to do. But now I think I'm doing a lot more. I'm being more active. Pursuing my fitness. I know as I grow older, there'll be times I'll be really busy because I'm also pursuing an MD as well soon. So I know that my life is going to really evolve. But at every point, I just take everything easy. So being a woman is cool. I think it's cool. It doesn't, I don't believe that, it makes you better. It's just really how you choose, how you decide to take it. But it's not like, because you're a woman, you'll be nicer. Or, nah, just do your work well. Do your work well and don't compete. Like, don't like work and like, I need to be like X person. Just be yourself and let your work speak for you. So that would be my honest advice based on my own experience. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. Thank you so much. I think that was very real and practical in terms of you're a woman, right? Own it, right? And do your work, right? Nobody's going to overlook your excesses or shortcomings because you're a woman. And at the same time, you don't have to compete. Or something you said, oh, if your male counterpart is doing 10 things and if you are going to do just 5, you'll do it well. So people know that, oh, if you're going to give something to Nkem, they are definitely that she will do it well. So irrespective of the number, we're not comparing, right? We're just ensuring to deliver our best, and that is what will take you through. And I know you also talked about how having a strong support system is good, and I think that's something I'm learning, right? Because I'm just a year post school. That's something I'm learning, because work isn't always fun. Like you said, it's not always fun. But then when you have people you can always fall back on, people you can always run to, and then they'll cheer you up. It's just something that keeps you going, right? So we'll be taking questions from the audience in a bit, but I want to ask Adebayo this question, and that would be, how did you get into Harvard? And so the question is, for someone like me, I'm 1 year post school. I'm also looking to get post grad opportunities. So, what exactly, and I'm sure there are like a couple of people like me on the call today. So, what exactly are the things you would advise I start doing, or what are the things that schools like Harvard will look out for? I hear that some schools are keen on um, like CSR activities. I hear that some schools are keen on your experience. I hear that some schools are keen on your recommenders, like people who eventually, write your recommendations and all of that. So, what are the things you would say top schools are keen on, and what are the things I can start doing to improve my opportunities?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about that. And I think to TLDR to answer in summary, you need to be yourself. And I know that is such a basic, banal thing to say, but you really, really need to be yourself. You need to know yourself and be yourself. What I was thinking about applying to business school for me was okay. So for full context, when I was in Unilag in my final year, I applied to this thing called 2+2, which is basically you apply to business schools before you graduate from school. And they allow you defer your resumption for like minimum of 2 years and a maximum of 4 years. So one of my friends, and one of my very good friends, had applied, or at the time he was applying to Harvard and Stanford and a few other schools. And then about a month to the deadline of the application, he told me about the application, and I was like, wait, like it's the deadline is in a month. I didn't even know this was possible. And he said, well, he's been preparing for it for a while, that I have to write a GMAT, get a recommendation, write an essay, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot of work to do in a month. So anyways, I applied still, but I didn't apply to Harvard and Stanford at the time because I figured like, wait, these are two big schools. I did not think I could get there. I didn't really see myself there. But I applied to MIT, Columbia, and Chicago both. Like really good schools as well, incredible schools. I was looking to get into these schools, and my expectation going at least as of 2020 was I would attend one of these schools at the end of the day. I also really liked them, so I was fine, applying to them. But then a few years later, when I was working in banking and even like in growth equity, when I ultimately decided to apply to schools again, by that time, my experience had obviously shifted. The person I was in 2020 wasn't the person I was in 2023 when I was applying. I had worked professionally, I had seen more people, and very similar to the thing Ikem was saying, I had also had a bit of time to reflect and to reflect on the things I'd done so far and what I wanted my next step to be. So even though I did not know what I want the future to ultimately be like, I knew that my next step, I wanted to do something that was in some way focused on the continent, but I did not necessarily want to be on the continent. Like I wanted to be, so I liked my role in London, for example, where I was investing in Africa, but I was based out of London. And I know it's a very funny thing to say, but like I have a very nice love and hate relationship with Nigeria, especially. Like I'm happy to spend a few months in Nigeria and spend another like a few more months in London. So I wanted something like that. And I was thinking about the schools in which I could make that possible, right? The schools that could give me the kind of global exposure that I wanted, that were very relevant to the continent, where I got the kind of exposure I needed to the continent. So they had like resources on the continent. And the school also had like the brand that could carry like outside of the US. And so the two schools that came to mind was obviously like Harvard and Stanford at the time as well, and even Columbia and Wharton. Those are very good schools. But then I did even more research. I realized that Harvard had like an Africa center. They had like professors who were teaching classes focused on Africa. They had a really big Africa conference. It was just like a number of things. They had like a much bigger, sort of, not a much bigger, but they had like a sizable number of like African students as well compared to the other schools. And it was also like on the East Coast, which is it's also like closer to Nigeria and London compared to like Stanford, which is on the West Coast, which is a bit farther. And for me, that was something that was important to me. I wanted to be closer as well to like friends and family and community. So I had a number of factors that I was basically weighing, and but I still applied to all the schools again. I applied to all of them again, and then I got into like, and I ultimately got into them, and ultimately decided on Harvard. The things that I had to do once when I now realized what I like the school I wanted to go to, and the application I needed to make was work experience. The average work experience for many of the business schools, like the years of work experience, is like 5 years. So on average, people come to the school at 27, 28, and they have like 5 years of work experience. Now, there are people who come to the school at 30, at 31, at 32. There are people who have like 3 years, 4 years, 6 years, 7 years of work experience. Like it's a curve. It's just like the average is 5 years and 27, 28 years or 29, whatever the case might be. You also need to have like gym, you need to write GMAT or GRE. And so I wrote the GRE instead because it was just kind of easy compared to the GMAT. But again, I would say write both of the tests and figure out which one you're able to score best on. You can take practice tests. So before you pay any money, take practice tests and then figure out which of them you find easier to do. I wrote the GRE and I figured like it was a lot easier for me to do. I also thought about applying for a PhD at some point. I was like, okay, the GRE is a bit more versatile as a score compared to the GMAT. The GMAT is very business school specific, but the GRE you can use for any graduate program. So that was another thing that influenced my decision. Recommendations are also very important. I think look for people who can recommend you. And to the point I was making on mentorship earlier, where people try to get like the most senior person to write a recommendation for them. You go look for like a partner or like some senior MD who doesn't know you, who has never worked with you, or maybe has interacted with you a few times. Those recommendations are not as strong. But you can also meet an associate that is like 1 year or 2 years ahead of you, who has worked with you, who you are close with, who has seen you grown, who has interacted with you, who can write a much more powerful recommendation. And so for me, I basically balance my recommendation between people who knew me, who had seen my work, and who understand the kind of person that I was, and who could write a very compelling recommendation for me. So you need to seek out good recommenders. And then I think the other thing is just um, I think your essay, like your story. And I think this is and I know this is a very important one because a lot of Nigerians and many Africans always write sub stories about, how they are. Like people talk about people writing sub stories. I don't really agree with that personally. I think that a lot of us have grown up in environments that are not normal, if we're being honest. It's not normal to go to a university where you're supposed to spend 4 years, but you spend 5 or 6 years because of ASO strike. It's not normal for you to write jam multiple times before you get into a university. It's not normal for you. Like there's so many things that we've normalized today that like it's not normal, right? And so if you can go through all of that and get a good CGPA and you graduate and you do all these things. I mean, in the US, like graduation is not an achievement for many people, like because everyone goes to college or goes to university here. But if you can go through everything Nigeria throws at you and you graduate with a good grade and you do all this internship, like that is something very compelling. That's a different story. And so I want you to be able to lean into your story, right? But you now realize that a lot of people over lean into that story and a lot of people over dramatize the story. So as you think about your essay, think about things that like are unique to you, things that are different, right? Because the admission person can see your letter of recommendation, they know that you are good. They can see your grades, they know you've passed all your grades. They can see that you work in infrastructure, they know that you're passionate about infrastructure. But why? Why did you do all of that? Why was it important for you to be the best in your class? Why did you decide to do infrastructure? Why did like why? What's the why that connects all of this? So for me, that was how I prepared my application. I was like, you can see all these things about me, all this secondary school, university, good grades, all of this. You can see all of these things about me. But what you don't see is the why I did that. And I want to be able to communicate that to you in my essay. And here is my why. So you need to think about your application as an holistic piece where everything comes together to create a good, to create a picture of you. But in order to do that in a compelling way, you need to know yourself, which is why I said, in summary, know yourself, or like, who are you and how do you want to project yourself to the people who are going to read your application. I also want to quickly attribute something I said. So I said I define learning as being accountable, for like taking accountability for like consequential decisions. That is something that my professor says a lot. So like this definition is actually his definition that I have come to now imbibe as just making consequential decisions that I'm accountable for. But yeah, so that's how I ultimately decided to come to Harvard, and that's the application, but not just for Harvard, but even other business schools as well. So if you want to apply in a few years, you don't have to apply to MBA as well. You can do a master's if that is what appeals to you better. You can do a PhD. An MBA is just a professional degree. It's for people who are looking to switch careers, who are looking to take a break and think about other things. So think about why you want to apply or why it might be helpful to you, and then think about the schools that might help you do that. If you're looking to do like tech entrepreneurship, you want to be in Silicon Valley, etc. Stanford is a great school. If you want to do general business, you want to be in Africa, Harvard is an incredible school. Wharton is another incredible school as well for finance. So like think about what you want to do and what you want to get out of the program, and then think and apply to a school that makes the most sense. That said, regardless of which of the schools that you go to, you would find success. So if you get into Columbia and you don't get into Harvard, or you get into Harvard and you don't get into Columbia or Stanford, like it's fine. You're going to find success. Don't be bothered about, oh, it's like budging about, oh, do I want to go to Unilag or AU Covenant or UI? Like it doesn't matter. Like any of the schools you go to, you'd find success regardless. So just get the recommenders, write your test, try to get a good CGPA as well. It's kind of competitive. Like a lot of people get good CGPAs. Get a good CGPA if you can. Um, yeah, you don't need like a professor to recommend you. So the point on extracurricular activities, I think that is also important as well because they want to see what you're also doing outside of work. So outside of the classroom, what are you doing? What are the communities you are invested in? How do you commit your time to doing that. So you also want to think about extracurriculars that you want to include as well in your application. But don't just list a bunch of extracurricular activities. List activities that really, really matter to your why, right? So like they actually get a good picture of who you are. You don't want to misrepresent yourself in the applications because again, think about it. If you come to a classroom where everyone has misrepresented themselves, you would be disappointed in the program, right? So you want to make sure you are putting yourself in the most authentic light so that your classmates can benefit from you and so that you can also benefit from them because you're coming with the assumption that everyone there is authentic and they're coming in that like in their authentic selves. And that is what makes these programs powerful, the people that you meet. You meet people from all over the world. It's very diverse. And like it makes more sense when everyone is authentic and original, right? So you want to present yourself holistically. So take a lot of time to like figure out who you are and what you want to present in your application.
Thank you very, very much, Adibara. Thank you. I think that was very practical for me. That was very, very practical for me. So you talked about the experience, you talked about the exams, talked about having a fine balance of the recommendations. You talked about leaning into your story. Don't over dramatize the fact that you are from Nigeria, right? But like still leveraging these are very practical and things that we can always, we can leverage I think I got a notification that I lost my network. I think I'm good now. Okay. So we're hoping to close out before 6:30. So if you're live, if you're with us, YouTube, Google Meet, and you have a question, you can please drop it now, and then we'll try to collate and come up with the best way to ask the speakers. Or ask in came the next question while we're on that. So my question for Inkem would be for those of us in finance, for those of us pursuing a career in finance, it might look like the peak of our careers would be to join one of the global institutions like IFC, AFC, OFA, Goldman, JP. But then one thing I have noticed with life is when you are not in a particular point, it's hard for you to see further or beyond those places, right? So my question to you then is, do you think there are, like, what's from where you are, what do you think is the next big thing, or what do you think is the next best way to um optimize or to move forward? Do you think having a maybe building a business, starting something, but like what do you think is from, because I mean at that point your view has expanded and then you can now see better, right? So what do you think you could define as the next big thing? And I'm asking this because in the end, I mean, not everybody might get into IFC, right? Not everybody might get into AFC, but then you still want to do big things. You don't want to be stuck in the middle. So how do you think, maybe if I don't want to get into IFC, what's another thing I can do, right, to also ensure I'm not in the middle? Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. So is this also specific if you want to still be in finance or like what any other career path?
I think we have some people who are not finance pursuants on the call, so it can be open.
Okay, that's great. I'll start off talking about myself. Like, I mean, I think in life, one thing, my mantra is, taking each day one step at a time. It's a mantra I have. And even right now, tomorrow I might not be in finance. It's possible. Like, it's very possible. I don't think, I just feel as humans we should live the most, like just be true to yourself. You're going to evolve over time. There's one thing I've seen about myself, I've really evolved over time. My interests have evolved. I know that in 5 years, I mean, I might want to do something different. It might be starting up something. I mean, starting up something is usually a very deep decision. It's not something I'll just advise you just rush to do like maybe 3 years post school, except you have all the resources in place. Let's say you have support, financial support, but usually, if I mean being a Nigerian, usually going to a federal university, you want to start up by at least building some experience. So I would say, even if you don't choose to be in finance, what is so important is I don't believe in the concept of, because things are always changing, big thing, whatever. I just think things will, today they say, oh, before it was like, oh, tech. Now people are saying, oh, tech is not really the thing now. Everything's always changing. Now there's AI, so at this point, I would not advise you to be too focused on how you're going to be long term, like maybe how you'll be in the next 10 years or next, just take your life one step at a time, even me right now, like I said, I'm doing finance currently. Tomorrow, if you see me doing, just saying, you see me own a non-profit or being consultant, it's like, it's life. I can decide to change my path in future. And I don't believe in following rules, or if you start off with a particular career path, you want to do it for the rest of your life. So I would say, I don't believe in the concept of big thing, maybe because everything is always changing. Today there's something, today there's robotics, tomorrow there's this, there's that. So I'll just advise you at this point, given the level you are in right now, I would say you don't need to be so focused on the big thing, because even I remember when I started doing my MBA application journey, like I'm currently on that now, and then you ask yourself, oh, what's your long term? Most times you don't even yet know what you want to do. Like you would think that, oh, because Nkem has worked for 5 years, she knows what she wants to do in long term. But honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do in the next 10 years. I'm being honest with you. That's true. I don't want to lie and say, oh yeah, I see myself being a CEO, blah. It's possible, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So I would say, even after working, I'm more experienced than you guys. I've worked, but I'm still learning about myself. I'm still unraveling new facets of myself, new passions, new interests. So I don't believe you should be focused on a big picture now, like, oh, how will I be next 5 years or 10 years? Take it easy. Just focus on how will I be in the next 3 years. Take it step by step. And in 3 years' time, you have said, like, you hear the story, he set up applying, and he was like, oh, I applied to XX schools. He didn't think he was ready for Harvard. And then after 3 years, he had more clarity and decided to apply to. He wouldn't have known that if he didn't work for 3 years. So there's some things that you would not know until you actually experience life. So even if you're not in finance, what I would say from the beginning, just be true to yourself. Not everybody's going to be in, not everybody's going to work in investment banking. Investment banking is not for everyone. I mean, I know that's the most popular. not everybody's going to work in private equity. Some people might also work in finance, but be in other areas of finance. There's portfolio management, there's trading as well. So there are other areas of finance you can work. And even if you choose not to be in finance, I've seen people excel in different paths. I have friends in consulting. There's a consulting that's a very, very good path as well. So it's very fast paced, similar to finance, but it's also a different kind of experience, right? It's something I also considered. Would I say when I finished school, I was saying, whether consulting, finance, any of them, I was good with them because there was just that creativity element and numbers, which I really wanted. So I'll say there's the concept of big thing at this point. I think the big thing for you right now is to understand what you want to do, at least in the next 2 to 3 years. If you're just finishing school, what do you want to in short term? Then, because after 3 years, trust me, I'm sure that everything you think you want to do now, you might find out something else. So I'll just say be patient. Don't focus too much on the long term, because being more experienced, I'll tell you that I'm still learning more about myself. I'm still thinking of doing something new at some point. So you can make it, even if you choose to do HR, for example. Even if you choose to do comms, or you said to go the comms route, maybe go to communications. I don't know what backgrounds of people are here. I know most women TIS at least have some level of interest in finance in a way. But I know there are other people that genuinely, maybe they're just thinking everybody's doing finance, must I do it? If you genuinely don't think it's for you, I've seen people excel in tech, I've seen people excel in HR. You just have to pick. I have friends in different, in my class, when I finished school, we all studied economics, but truth be told, everybody's doing, not everyone's in finance, not everyone's doing economics. Some people are doing, I have a friend that left economics completely and she's doing something in human. I think she's doing something more AI tech, and this was not something she thought she was going to do. She thought she was going to go maybe the whole serious route, go the whole finance route. Now she's thinking of doing a PhD. This was not something she thought she was doing, and it's something completely unrelated, completely not related to her bachelor's, her work experience, and she's doing something new. She's telling me, I want to pursue a PhD. I'm like, what's this course? This sounds like AI. I don't think I would have thought you'd do that. So I would say, when you finish school, the major thing, and I like the fact that she followed her own path. We're friends, but like I said, in my friend group, I don't think I'm doing the same thing with all of my friends. We're all doing different things. And I'll say they're all excelling, You just don't want to be in the middle. And I think being in the middle, when that comes, when you're just being lax, you're like, oh, let me take life as it goes. No, that should not be the approach. So I'll say the big thing for you guys right now should be okay, if you're about to enter your NYC, or start your NYC, okay, what would I love to do? Nigeria, you don't really get to choose where you're posted to, like he said, but at least you're able to decide the companies you apply to post NYC. So I'd say right now, you want to, speak to experienced people. I like what Adebayo said about the fact that mentorship, sometimes mentorship is very overhyped and people just say, oh, you have to speak to CEOs, you have to speak to people who are already top there. No, I think my mentorship journey was similar as well. I would just speak to people that just maybe a little 1 or 2 levels ahead of me. Maybe they're really like my seniors in school. Maybe I was in 400 level, they were 400 level. Those people helped me a lot to even understand, okay, this is what finance is about. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is not bad. This sounds like me. This sounds like what I'm going to like to do. So I'll say one thing you should focus on is, I wouldn't say focus on the next big thing. Focus on, what your plan is for the short term, short to medium term, next 3 years. Because trust me, I'm sure that in 5 years, there'll be another big thing that's, apart from AI, that there'll be something else. So I don't like to focus on the big thing concept. I just believe take your journey one step at a time. It's very important because you cannot fast track life. You cannot say, oh, I will figure it out in day one. It's not possible. You have to go through that process. It's like a process. All of us here that, the guy going to MBA, he actually has to go through the process of working, learning about himself, knowing the type of school, knowing that Harvard was right for him. He didn't just know that in 2020 or when he came out of school, right? So I'll say, don't focus too much on the big thing, focus more on, how do I get started? How do I set myself up for success? I think that's what's more important. Agency, everything we're talking about, that should be the focus. Really important. Your big thing is unique to you. Your big thing should basically be, how do I, get myself to be the best at what I do in something that I love or something I have interest. You might not be, to be honest, passions change. So you might start off with something now, but something that I think I would love. And then when you do it, from there, you keep progressing. So that would be my advice. So even if you're in HR right now, I want to speak HR at some point. Just if I want to do HR communication. So I'm a very multifaceted individual, and I don't think I followed the whole traditional path. And I was patient with myself. In school, I didn't practice. I didn't even know so much about TIS because I was on a different path mentally. But I just think because I was able to figure out myself, I was able to still get to that path. That's what I just think is important. So now that you have some clarity being a great organization like TI, I mean, two of my sisters, like my other sister went to TI, she was in TIS as well, which is school. I'm really proud of them. I didn't do that in school. I was doing great. I just feel I had a different focus then. You understand? So I'll just say, take it easy with yourself. I don't believe big thing right now. I don't know the big thing for me. So I can't tell you, I can't tell you the next big thing. Just focus more one step at a time, and eventually everything will make sense with time. So that would be my honest advice. I mean, based on my experience. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you so much. I think I liked that you told us to take one day at a time. And I think it's a thing with let's say our generation where we're always looking for the big picture, right? And we're just trying to like chart or craft our ways towards it. But then it's also more, and I think one of the things you said is very important. In the next 5 years, it might not be AI anymore, right? There might just be something else, right? So you just want to ensure that at every point when you're working towards something valuable, right? So for the sake of time, I'm going to try to point the questions we have in such a way that everybody is will I say satisfied, right? So I think my next question would be people on the pathway to finance, right? So people have different backgrounds and they're just thinking about the best way to break into the finance space. I think from what I can observe here, a couple of people are focusing on investment banking. So I think I'll direct this question to Adebayo. What are the necessary maybe skills or steps you need to take to break into I'll say finance, but then we could try a niche on investment banking. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, investment banking at a very early stage, just to the points Ike made earlier around, I think just being people interpersonal, having interpersonal skills and people skills. Another thing is just like being technical as well. I know people, there's a lot of emphasis on the technical bit, but the truth is, even though we ask you all those technical questions in the interview, no one expects you to actually know all those technical things. It's just kind of good to basically weed out people during the interview process. A lot of the technical things you ultimately learn on the job. So, for example, I was in FIG. I learned a lot of DCF, a lot of LBO math, a lot of measure math, a lot of those things when I was doing my interview preparations, but I actually never used them, right? Because a lot of banks don't even trade on EBITDA multiples, right? Like they use a different kind of multiple. So all those things that I basically spent many months learning, I did not use on the job. Banks don't do LBOs, for example. I only started doing LBOs when I was advising like fintechs who were looking to acquire. And even that, like it wasn't like a thing. We didn't have as many like LBO transactions for like fintechs, just given how they were. So same thing as well, like if you join certain niche industries like natural resources where valuation is a bit different, the kind of math is a bit different as well. I guess my point is know the basic technicals, how an income statement works, how you like basically know the basic technicals that you learn in CIS, understand the markets, and then to the point it came also made earlier around being able to communicate. Like how do you communicate thoughts? How do you communicate an analysis? How do you communicate numbers in a way that demonstrate that you actually understand the why behind the number? I think those are like things, or those are things that you ultimately want to know or to learn or as you prepare for like your technical investment banking journey. But I think another point I would like to emphasize is there's so many parts outside of investment banking in finance. There is trading, there is market, there is compliance, there is risk, there is operations, there is consulting. There's like so many things you can do if you really want to be in finance. There's research as well. So like there are a number of things you can do, and sometimes you only learn about these things when you get into the firms. Sometimes you learn about them from outside the firm. But I would say take your time and do research and try to understand the different divisions within the bank and figure out which of them makes the most sense for you. Now, the division that makes the most sense for you might not have a structured internship program. They might not have a structured recruiting program. But then, because you know this is division that makes the most sense for me, and I really like it, you can connect to the people who work there on LinkedIn and reach out to them. And who knows, they might just be willing to take a chance on you. But you would not find out that unless you spend time doing the research.
Okay, thank you very much, Adebayo. So I think to people who are asking, how do I break into certain divisions of finance? I think one thing Adebayo said that's very important is research. Is research. Like do your research, ask your questions, join conversations like this, and just really understand how to navigate basically, because I mean building your career is a journey, right? So how best to navigate. And he also said something, develop your technical skills, right? Understand the basics. You might not, I mean, in the end, you might not eventually use these skills, right? But then just having a good understanding, being able to communicate that you understand a certain thing will just help you, especially with your application processes before getting a foot in the door, right? I think those are things that are very important. Quickly, Adebayo, you said you were going to say something about the CFA, and I think someone is asking about that.
Yes, yes. So I was just going to make the point very quickly. I knew the CFA is mostly for people who are looking to do investment management and asset management. And that's something I didn't talk about within finance as well. You have investment management, you have portfolio management, you have asset management, you have long short hedge funds, you have multi-strategy hedge funds. There's like a lot of things. Finance is such a huge industry, right? But there's a certain segment of finance which is just around managing money and not advisory. So I knew that I would be doing advisory as opposed to like funds management. So asset management, investment management, portfolio management, all of those managements, whatever it is that they're called, right? I knew I wasn't going to do that. And so I figured like if I'm not going to do that, then why do I want to write a CFA? I have studied finance, like understand finance. Like it's not like I'm new to finance. I studied it, I understand it. I am not doing asset management or investment management. I'm not trying to work at a hedge fund or like at a long only fund or whatever the case might be. So I did not see point to doing it. But now, but then with the MBA is a bit more generalist. Like anybody can do an MBA. So there are people in my class who were pilots, people who worked in theater, people who were software engineers, people who were developers, people who were in the military. I had people who, think about the most random things. There are people who did the Olympics, are in my class, like the most random things are in my class, and we're all doing the MBA together, right? So the MBA is a bit more versatile in the sense that you actually learn everything from finance to management to strategy to accounting to marketing. You learn everything about what it takes to run a business and set up a business, right? And if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for like a much more generalist, focused, quantitative management education, the MBA is going to make the most sense for you. I also figure that like the CFA doesn't necessarily help you switch careers. So if you are I mean, okay, maybe it helps you. So if you're working in like audit and you wanted to switch to deal advisory or portfolio management, writing a CFA might be able to help you do that, but it might be difficult to do that. But another way to switch into advisory from audit is by doing the MBA, because you can do audit and then do an MBA and then just recruit for like advisory directly. Like it's kind of easy. It's a much easier path compared to the CFA. But ultimately for me, it was just more around the CFA being very focused towards like asset managers and investment managers, and like that's not something I wanted to do. I didn't want to invest the time to write the exam. It's a very intense, very difficult, very complicated exam. I didn't want to do that. One of the trade-offs I didn't want to make was also just I was working in okay. Another thing was I was also working in investment banking, where I was working 80 to 90 hours a week. I had so many deals, so I didn't even have time to read for the CFA. So that was another thing as well that I had to that I had to balance. But if you're thinking about doing, and also there are people in my class who've done the CFA before they can do their MBA. So you can do the CFA if you have time, if you're currently working in asset management, if you want to be in asset management for the next couple of years. You can write a CFA if you have the time to do it. And then if, to the point that Ken was making, in a few years time you realize actually asset management is not what I want to do. I want to do investment banking, or I want to do product management, or I want to do something else where the CFA is no longer relevant. You can then apply to do an MBA to make that transition.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, Inkem has to say something. Yes, please.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
just wanted to say this before we leave the CFA topic. Yeah, because I think the points that Adeba has made are very valid. But what I also want to highlight is, what being working in Nigeria and now moving to the US, I see that in Nigeria we're so focused on certifications compared to the US. Like when I was in PwC, if you're working in Big Four, for example, just to put that out there, for you to progress to say manager level, you have to have completed a certification, either it's ACCA or CFA, because I would say Nigeria, our job market is very tough. So as much as possible, they try to make it difficult by putting all those certifications there. So whether you're doing audit, whether you're working, it's usually a big thing. Like I hear people working, they're like, oh my God, I was pursuing the CFA. Like, because they're looking for promotion, those kind of things also help you to distinguish yourself. So if you're working in Nigeria, I know Adebayo's path was different and he went straight to the UK. If you're working in Nigeria, I would still advise you to pursue a certification, even if it's not CFA. To be honest, it doesn't have to be CFA. It can be, if you want to work in finance, at least have some level of, even if it's ICANN, or if you're already studying accounting, great, just do the ICANN, just finish it up if you started, or do the ACCA, but just do one if you're starting in Nigeria, because for you to even rise above the levels, they're going to be looking at that certification. I started my CFA as well, but compared to Adebayo, like at this point, I don't think I will continue for now, because coming to the US, I see that nobody even cares about it. And it's like, even if you want to pivot, it's just different countries. When you're exposed, if you start banking in the US or in London, you wouldn't need to do a CFA. But in Nigeria, it's such a big thing, whether it's CFA, whether it's the ICANN. Like in my workplace, nobody really cares about your certification. They care more about your education. And MBA is like the big thing, right? I mean, to lack of a better word, like MBA is the big thing of going for a master's. In Nigeria, you can still get to a director level without the master's. In the US, you cannot do that. Like for you to make a certain, even associate level, you need to have like an MBA or a master. Like that's like standard. That's standard. So I would say your environment also matters. So if you're starting up in Nigeria and you don't have the opportunity to like go directly to BOFA or JP Morgan, you just still want to do it because if you're working I was working PwC, if I was going to stay there to manager level, I knew that I had to complete the certification for me to be promoted, right? So, but just know that you don't have to, if you really don't like the CFA, like you don't have to kill yourself over it. Do you understand? You can take another alternative as you start. Maybe if you genuinely like CFA, go ahead and do it. It's good. Except your firm is really specific. I don't like the big fours are not so specific. For example, that you have to have a CFA if you're in deals advisory. It's even only for deals advisory. I'll say that's the process investment banking. If you're in audit, they are expecting to do ICANN or ACCA. If you're in deals advisory, it can be ICANN, it can be ACCA. If you're in consulting, no, nothing matters, to be honest. I think for consulting, it's MBA they care about. So I just think it's just those nuances, right? Location is also very important. So if you're starting off in Nigeria, I would really advise you to start early. If you think the CFA is too much for you, say I did level one. It's a lot out of it. It's a lot of work. So if you feel like it's not for you, don't kill yourself. Everybody's going to be doing so many things. You'll be pressured. But like I said, be true to yourself. If the CFA is not for you, go for one of them so that at least you can get promoted, because Nigerian firms it's different. Like in the US, I'm like, why doesn't anybody care about this? But yeah, that's life. But in Nigeria, I think they care so much about that. That's what everybody's trying to do. I mean, unemployment is high, so as much as possible, just try and do something that will distinguish you. So I'll advise you to, it doesn't have to be CFA. If you love it, start, especially if you're still very young, you just finished university. If you have time, you can do it. You can start off early and maybe finish your level 3 before, like 3 or 4 years before you go for, go leave the country or go for your MBA. But if you're going directly to the US, like, or UK, you don't have to stress. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that so that, especially if you come to the big four, just know that you have to do a certification. I just wanted to highlight that so that you don't be too relaxed that you can fly through the big four without certification. So yeah, that's just my addition. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kim. I really appreciate that. I think my last question or our last question for this session would be around transitioning. And I think Kim will be in the best way to shed more light on that. So we have people asking, oh, as a computer science graduate, we have a question on YouTube talking about a law graduate, but then how do you transition? What's the struggle like? How do you become successful in transitioning such that because I mean, clearly you've been able to, despite your background or despite your interest, I would say, you've been able to still build something for yourself, right? So how do you maximize your transitioning process, basically?
Yeah, okay, great. I mean, my bachelor's was in economics, so that's very well suited for finance. Like, I mean, it's very suited, even though I wasn't pursuing it then. But I mean, I know that there's so many people, and that was a mindset I used to have before. I think when you get older and you start getting exposed, you start seeing that some of those limitations, you think, oh yeah, because I studied marketing, oh I studied fisheries, oh I studied this, I studied botany, like you said something so unrelated, and then you think that you cannot pursue certain things. I remember my first job in banking. I remember there was this very great associate, and I think what he studied was library or something like that, something like library studies. I don't remember, something along those lines. I mean, that you'll be like, wow, how did he venture into it? But what I would say is that the good thing I like about the financial services industry, at least based on my experience, and also the Big Four, is that you can come as you are. Like, just be good, just have a good, at least minimum of a 2-1. If you can have first class grade or 2-1, just have a good degree, have a passion, have an interest. I remember when I joined PwC, there were so many kinds of people. I have colleagues that studied engineering. I have colleagues that studied computer science. I have colleagues that studied English. I have colleagues that didn't even have any sort of finance or, I mean, if you study like study accounts, at least you still have an edge, because let's say you did some of accounting, but some people studied like marketing, some people studied botany, something microbiology. Those are very courses that are far off, right? But they were still able to excel. I have someone that studied mass communication and he's currently doing audits, is crunching numbers, like, auditing financial statements. So I'll say the Big Fours especially, they are really good if you're coming from a different background, like you don't have any finance experience. The Big Fours they're not stereotyped. They wouldn't say, oh yeah, you have to have economics, you have to have accounting to work in finance. No, they will take you as you are and then, give you that training. And I think there are so many people excelling now. I had some partners in PwC that were doctors, or KPMG, that they studied like medicine, and then they're partners today. So one thing I want you to learn is that, or just know, is that when you come out to the real world is different from school. You don't have to practice what you studied in school, and it's totally okay. Many people are like you that start off maybe going to school and they study something. They're like, oh, wow, I don't want to do computer science anymore. I want to do finance. There are so many people like you that, in my own set, even in older generations, that they found out that they didn't want to pursue something and then they changed. So I'll just say the major thing is just being, now that you have to just be very strategic. You shouldn't just let life happen to you, like, oh, let me see what happens. You actually have to do an extra work to, put yourself out there. If you can get an internship at a finance company, for example, we have I know they have all this ARM, they do all this young talent program, things like that. So if you don't get into the Big Four, you can also consider other financial services firm in Nigeria. You can check like ARM. I know there's Stanbic. There are different banks and they offer, different internship opportunities for new people. I'm just saying it's very normal. In my team, I think I was the only person that studied economics. The other guy in my team studied engineering, and I had another guy that even studied something completely off. Like, it was so different. I was like, oh my God, how is he here? But that's how it happens. So when you enter the real workplace, you see that people are from different backgrounds, like even background, and they tend to do really well. So you not studying accounting, or you're not studying finance or economics or business admin or anything management science, doesn't mean that you will not do well. I think what you need to do, those opportunities we talked about, right now that you take courses, now be very intentional about trying to get internships, right, in some of this finance. So you just need one or two. If you can get one internship, you just need one internship to just show that, okay, I can do this, and then you start pitching yourself from there. I know the job market is really tough. I know it's really tough, it's competitive, but honestly, for the Big Four, they don't really care about your bachelor's. Like, they just, as long as you're smart, you ace the interviews, you show that you have that interest in learning, you'll be good. So I see some people saying, oh, they study computer science. I see some people saying, oh, I studied this, but I don't want to do that. It's totally fine. I've had accounting students say they don't want to do accounting. It's very normal. So don't let your bachelor, like, as you finish school, forget about your bachelor. Like, I mean, mentally, don't think your bachelor is a success factor. It's just the beginning, to a very long journey. So the bachelor is just to help you at least get a job, really. but your success will be less dependent on your bachelor's degree. I've seen people excel with microbiology degrees in finance, like they're investment bankers doing great stuff. So don't be scared. I'll just say, looking at my journey similarly, like, I mean, I was someone that I didn't start off with finance. I didn't think I was going to do it in my school. Like, I didn't even do any internships in school, but I'm here today, right? So I'll just say, for you guys that are studying computer science or other degrees, what you just have to do now, you take all those courses, start taking them. Another thing I'll say, speak to people who have experience. Speak, not like, I don't mean like the CEOs, but like people that maybe are 2, 3 years post school, really care about it. Because as a computer science student, I assume that you wouldn't know so much about nuances of finance if you've not been really exposed. So you also want to, don't just follow the bandwagon. Don't really understand, so that you're sure you want to do it. So speak to people who are like maybe 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead, people like me, maybe 4 or 5 years. Just really understand how is it in finance, so that you're really sure. Because it's very easy to think that, oh, because finance is the big thing, let me go to it. So just be really sure that you're considering it. Even if you're still figuring out, just ask questions, attend events. I mean, events like this are really good. So events like this, attend, speak to people. And if possible, I think the main big changer is actually to get an internship, or just like if it's your NYC, if you don't NYC, like a full-time job in, whether a big four or a financial services firm in Nigeria. There are a couple of them. So even if you don't start with the biggest ones, take your life. I've had friends that didn't join PwC at the beginning. Maybe instead of working at a boutique firm and then they join later. So just understand that your journey don't be too hard on yourself. Even if you don't start off with maybe a very popular firm, you can start, but don't be too comfortable with that. What I'll say. Don't say, oh, I'm here, let me just relax. No, if you know that you want to be global, you have to maybe give yourself a time frame. I'm going to be here for one year. I'm just saying. And then let me also be applying to places like PwC or places that, I mean, we have bigger banks. We have Standard Chartered in Nigeria. It's also, I wouldn't say like it's also very global. They have offices in London. These are very global banks you can also work in as well. We have Stanbic, we have Rand Merchant Bank. So there are a couple of them. So I'll just say, just start with something small. I mean, it might be difficult at first, so don't be too hard on yourself. But my point is, it's very normal. Like, I meet people every day that didn't have any background in finance and they're doing super well today. So I'll just say, now that just start working towards, getting an internship there, so that from there, you can now seek a full-time offer, hopefully, even if it's in that firm or somewhere else. But at least just get your feet in. But it's completely normal. It's very normal in the workplace, and I've seen it a lot. That I don't even think bachelor's. I just think bachelor's is just a ticket to survive, basically. But then your future, your career is entirely based on what you do after your bachelor's degree. So that's not a limit as well. As long as you finish with a good degree, I think you're going to be good. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nkem. I think I agree with the fact that sometimes your bachelor's is just, I mean, it's just what it is, right? It's just a certificate that keeps you going. But then you also want to do the best at it, right? So we're closing out now, and I think we'll just like to take will I say closing words from both our speakers, general advice, something you just want to share to other people, right? Just so that they could leverage. Yeah. So Adibayo, do you mind going first?
Sure, yeah. I'm just gonna keep it super quick. Firstly, if you haven't joined the wait list on used on UT.io, please join the wait list, I beg, so I can get my grades. I also want to get feedback on like what I put together as well. I just sent a message on the chat on that. So like that's gonna be my first sort of thing. Please join it. And I think secondly, just to the point on like agency as well, like take agency for the things that like you do. If there's anything to take out of this, at least from what I've said today, is take agency, find community, or like look for community of people who are in the trenches with you, and then put your and don't take failure very personally. Use failure as a means of introspection. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm not very active on social media or like on anything, so it's possible you might reach out to me and I might not reply you, but like I will get to your messages. It might not be immediately, but I will get to your messages at some point. But please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or anything. Let me know. I will get to it. I don't have LinkedIn on my phone. I would just, it's one of those things where I just delete because I don't want to deal with it. But like reach out to me, then I would reply your messages. But yes, let me, if you have any questions, please reach out. And yeah, but like take agency, honestly. Like I want to see more people. And if you do anything where you've taken significant agency, please feel free to reach out to me and like let me know what agency you took, what difficult problem you solved, what hard problem you solved, and we can chat about that. Those are the kind of conversations I love to have. But yeah, I would end with that.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Adiba. So we'll just allow Nkem to also speak now.
Okay, I think for me, like I said, my mantra is taking each day one step at a time. So I'll just reiterate that again. Just be really kind to yourself and understand that you wouldn't figure everything out at the beginning. Like everything that might not work as exactly how you plan, but in everything, even for me, for the opportunities I think that I didn't like I wanted at that time and I didn't go for it. Looking back, sometimes you only learn things when with more experience. And then I look back, I'm like, oh wow, I'm glad I didn't go for that job because it would have changed my entire career. So I'd say even when you take a job that it feels like, oh wow, I wish I got this one, my friend got this one, I wish I was here. Don't be too hard on yourself. Like you cannot tell how your future, you can't tell the exact, you might tell, okay, I'll get here later, but the exact way or process in which it's going to happen, you cannot control everything. So just be patient, be patient, take each day one at a time. If you fail or if you don't get something when you want it, just keep learning. Networking is also very important. Having people that you look up to, that maybe a few years ahead of you that you can speak to, openly and comfortably. I think they were really helpful to me as well. So I'll say that's really important. And very importantly, I like again, I'll just say just be true to yourself. Be very true to yourself and understand that your journey is very unique. You cannot replicate somebody else's journey exactly, no matter how similar you guys may seem. So just understand that and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I mean, I'm not super active lately because I'm very busy, but you can also drop a message and I'm happy to speak, especially if you're specifically looking to go to the big four or you just want to like pivot to finance. I just have general questions. I'm happy to speak. I love doing that. I love helping other people because I think during my time, I also got a lot of support. So as much as possible, I like supporting people as well, when they're confused or trying to, take a big step because I mean, I started that very early. So I'm really happy to speak to anybody. I tried to answer some questions on the chat, but I don't think I might have seen everything. So feel free to send me a connection request or send a message and I can answer your questions directly. But two things I'll say, take life one step at a time and be very true to yourself. Like everything will fall into place eventually. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, I think this is the time where we celebrate our speakers. They have been very, very wonderful. Like I must admit that I mean I expected like something huge, but then they genuinely exceeded my expectations with the questions. I think they were very practical, right? Beyond the whole, they were very practical, right? They were very straightforward. It was genuinely an unfiltered conversation, and I really hope that everybody on the call has been able to get a couple of things from their journey that can also help ours. I mean, because that's like the reason why we put this together, just to ensure that we have answers to our questions even as we walk through our journey. I hope uh, it has been a very good of your time, a very good use of your time. I really hope so. So once again, this is the Career Tour Guide initiative, and its major focus is just to help people who are looking towards building a successful career, bring answers to your questions, right? It wouldn't always be, I mean, a career is your journey. Like I think that's one thing Nkem has said. Like it's usually not clear, right? But then when you have people who are like-minded, like Adebayo said, it just helps the journey be easier, right? It just helps you understand that, oh, okay, other people are failing, right? And it's okay, right? We're all working towards something and we can always hold each other's hands. And so on this, we partnered with the Investment Society. I think we did this with a couple of schools across board. And we also partnered with the Impact College. So the Impact College is also an active finance institute training people. So if you also, I know you're looking to pivot, you're looking to start with something in finance, you can also look out for the Impact College. I think they're active on Instagram, active on LinkedIn. You can always reach out to them and get to know how best they work. For the career tour guide, we have an active YouTube session, YouTube account that you could always follow, where we'll be dropping videos like this. We'll be airing sessions like this. This is actually our first live session, and I'm very happy we got to do it with Nkem and Adebayo, because they've been very, I mean, they were very, very fantastic people. So I think finally, uh, on this note, I'd like to say thank you to Adebayo. Thank you to Nkem. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. And thank you for sharing out your experience with us. So, yeah, I guess this is bye, everyone. Thank you all
Yeah,
for
thank you so much,
joining.
everyone. It was really great to spend the last 2 hours here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone. Bye.